And we're live. How you doing? Michael Sartain today.
Hey, what's going on, man? How's it going?
Good, good. All the way out in Vegas, right?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Never leaving here.
So yeah, I love it out there. I've been there actually in a short period. I was there 20 times. I haven't been out there for I think since 2021. So hopefully we'll make it back there.
Yeah, it's funny when I was stationed in Wichita, Kansas, at McConnell Air Force Base. For some reason, none of my friends wanted to come visit me. When I was stationed at when I was briefly TDY when I was out in Alaska for a while, for some reason, none of my friends wanted to come visit me. All of a sudden, I live in Las Vegas. All my friends and family want to come visit me 2 or 3 times a year. It's crazy.
Yeah, Vegas is great. I've been out there, like I said, like 20 times. The first, I think 5 times, I was like, yeah, Vegas party, the strip, all that stuff. And there's just so much. I love the lifestyle in Vegas and the people too,
Yeah.
because when I go out there, I'll train in the MMA gyms, and a lot of times I'll rent a motorcycle to get out through the canyons and all the valleys and all that stuff. It's a beautiful place.
I feel like it's becoming the MMA capital of North America. I think Las Vegas is, and
I think
and
it already
it's
is now.
yeah. I would say so. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think when they moved the UFC headquarters here and all the fights, and you saw what they did at the Sphere recently, the amount of guys. I go paintballing every weekend with some friends, and the amount of pro MMA guys that come out paintballing with us is crazy. Every week, there's just new guys out there. So yeah, it's
Yeah,
pretty nuts.
yeah, it's awesome. So, I guess today, what else are we going to talk about? We're going to kind of dive into men, and can you give a little explanation about what you do and your program and how you work with the guys?
Yeah, so I'm a male performance coach. Basically, the way I describe it is on a scale of 1 to 10. Uh, when I was growing up, I'm 47 years old. When I was growing up, people were either like very famous, so let's say like Tom Cruise or Joe Montana or Ronald Reagan, you're super famous, or no one knew who you were. And there wasn't this intermediate level of fame. And what I try to explain to guys is there's incredible concepts in like evolutionary psychology about networking, and there's ways by using things like social media where you can be like this mid-tier level of fame that didn't exist before. So meaning like there's a personal injury attorney here in Las Vegas named Steve Demopoulos. He has a billboard everywhere. So like everyone knows who the guy is. Or you've probably seen this before, certain guys who like advertise on Meta, or guys who are just like mid-tier streamers or whatever, stuff like that. There's like this mid-tier level of fame. Well, there's a level of fame even below that I try to teach guys to get to, where they can get any job they want. Every single attractive girl in their city knows what they look like, is at least aware of who they are. Every single restaurant owner is aware who they are. So basically, when I go out in Vegas, and when I go out with my friends, I never have to wait in line to go to any club. Most of the GMs of most of the restaurants know who I am. And I don't really spend a lot of money. It's just I'm out on a regular basis, and then they see me. There's this like low level of fame. When you use this, we'll just say this low level of status, this mid-tier level of status, when you do so, like dating is basically on easy mode. So a lot of guys come to me because they have trouble with their dating life, and I help them with that. The way I try to describe my program is that if you cannot replace your social circle 15 minutes, if you cannot replace your friend group in 15 minutes, if you cannot replace your job in 15 minutes, and if you cannot replace your girlfriend in 15 minutes, you don't have enough abundance. And I'm here to teach you that level of abundance. Additionally, there's a lot of guys who are a little bit older, and they probably noticed in the last 10 or 15 years, there's been a software update to the dating environment. Basically, social media, Instagram specifically, didn't really exist before 2011. So let's just say you got married in 2011 or 2010. Now you get divorced and you come out, and now there's this whole new dating landscape. There's this software, the whole landscape has been updated. The software has. I'm here to give you the software update. I'm here to explain to you how simple things are and how really the way this new game is played. And the reason why I have to do this is in part because society in general, specifically like big tech, the media, they don't want you to learn these techniques. They don't want you to understand things like mate choice copying in women. They don't want to mate choice copying in humans. They don't want you to understand concepts like pre-selection or how sexual selection works or social status or any of those things. They want you to become more vulnerable, and they want you to be yourself a little bit more. And this is really bad dating advice for men in 2025. So that's basically what I'm here for. I'm here to try to help men that have basically been left behind by the dating complex. And also, I'm here to be the guy. I try to teach you. I'm trying to think the best way to explain this. I like showing up to parties with somewhere between 20 and 60 girls. I like to go to places. I like to go to conventions with girls. I like to have like a lot of women with me. I try to teach men how they're able to do that easily without having to spend any money. I want you to be the guy that all your friends get their job through. I want you to be the guy that your friends meet their girlfriend through. I want you to be the guy that all their friends find their employees through. I want you to be that social hub that your entire social network spools around. So that's basically what I teach men to do, is become the center of their own social networks, to have a mid-tier, what we call like a mid-tier level of fame, and then to just have unlimited options and an unlimited abundance.
Yeah, it's ultimately creating more opportunities through expanding their relationships, right? What you said, can you expand on the part you said, kind of tech and people, or they don't want you to be yourself, or they're trying to make you yourself or something like that?
Yeah.
Because there's
So
a lot of garbage on social media today, right? It's
yeah,
like, and
yeah.
confusion.
I'm going to use him, this guy, as a specific example, just because he's in the news right now. The guy, Justin Baldoni. So he's the guy who's he was the star of this show called It Ends With Us. I'm not getting into he's in a legal battle right now where he's being accused of sexual harassment. That's not what I want to talk about. I want to talk about the fact that he's a male feminist who's a male model, and he has this thing called the Man Enough podcast. The Department of Homeland Security was literally funneling traffic from my podcast and from, like, say, Rollo Tomasi's podcast and other podcasts towards this Man Enough podcast that he has. We have the documentation from the DHS showing that they did this. They spent $700,000 doing this. And his podcast told men to open up and become more vulnerable. Now, I want you to consider a male model telling the average man to be more vulnerable. He explains to men that they need to express their interest in women right off the bat. So they need to go up to women and be like, I'm very physically attracted. Like, we're talking about unattractive men who are overweight walking up to beautiful women and saying, hey, I'm attracted to you, telling them right off the bat. Now, any man who's dated in the last 20 years knows that this is absolutely terrible advice to give to men.
Oh, they're
But
going to run away.
of course, because he's out of touch. He's a successful Hollywood director and actor and male model explaining to men to just be themselves. This is kind of the mainstream advice that a lot of people are getting. And you have also you have other gaslighters like Will Hitchens or Chris GQ Perry who say things basically to gaslight women. So Chris GQ Perry has this one super viral reel where he says women can tell when you're cheating. They'll have a dream about it and they can just tell. You can never fool a woman's intuition. And of course, any man who's dated a woman for any period of time knows that women will jump to conclusions with no basis of reality whatsoever. But he's telling these women what they want to hear, so he gets 1 million likes, even though he's saying something that is objectively false. So you're getting objectively false information and extremely bad dating information from these mainstream sources. And then content like mine, which is backed up by science, is ratioed. Content like theirs is perpetuated on places like TikTok, especially TikTok. TikTok is not going to tolerate any kind of male self-improvement content whatsoever. And so you'll see that kind of content that goes on. And then that's what I'm trying to talk about before. It's like the good advice, which is men should have boundaries. I personally believe that in the majority of cases, most men find themselves to feel worthless when it comes to coming up and talking to women. The reason why there's this confusion is, Michael, is because of this. I'm going to see if I can have something here. Here we go. I have 2 remote controls. Here we go. This remote control is a small group of men at the top. These men have like unlimited options with women. Okay. These men they can date whoever they want. They tend to make more money. Some of them are good looking. They have higher status. This is the other 80% of men. See, this is a bigger remote. This is the other 80% of men. Okay. These men are 9 times more likely to take their own lives than the general population. These men are far more likely to become homeless or suffer from mental illness. And these men make about $59,000 a year on average. These men, if they're lucky, the bottom third of men have 1 or 0 sexual partners in the last 2 or 3 years. This is who I'm talking about. Okay. So you see there's 2 groups of men here. Do you understand?
Yeah.
When women complain about men being narcissists, men being fuckboys, or men being cheaters, they're only talking about these men, this small group of men here. Okay. When I say, hey, men are suffering, women don't understand what I'm saying because they're just thinking about these men here who aren't suffering, because these are the men that they notice. This is the guy who gave them their Chick-fil-A order. This is the guy who gave them their McDonald's order. This is the cashier at Kroger's. This is the mailman. The women don't see these men. These men are here suffering. If you don't believe me, you should listen to Richard Reeves or Scott Galloway. This large cohort of men who's suffering, who women just completely ignore, this is who I'm talking to. So when I tell these men stop being worthless, $6.6 billion, that's how much revenue OnlyFans made last year. These are men giving up their money to women who don't care about them whatsoever. $6.6 billion. That tells you men feel like they're worthless. On dating apps, 80% of men are deemed unattractive. This is the 80% of men that are deemed unattractive. Another way to say it is these men are invisible. These men are invisible in a large part to society, but specifically to women. This is who I'm talking to. This is the group of men I'm talking to. The problem is when I give these men advice to stand up for yourself, to have boundaries, to not chase after women, to women, they hear me talking to this group of men and it sounds toxic, but I'm not talking to this group of men. This group of men doesn't need a self-improvement coach. This group of men does not come and join my program. Chad Thundercock and the fucking VIP host who's like super good looking and is a male model, he does not need my program. It's this group of men, okay? It's Jose and it's Jose from Mexico and Sandeep from New Delhi who come over here. They're 5'4" and women don't even fucking notice them. These guys are the ones who come to my program. And I have to help these guys develop boundaries and masculine qualities so that they have a better chance of attracting women. When people don't understand what I'm saying, they misinterpret it because they see men as a monolithic group. All men are cheaters. All men are narcissists. All men are trash. These are two groups of men. You need to understand, if you don't grasp this concept of the bifurcation of men, then none of this self-improvement stuff makes any sense to you. And you,
Well, I think
because you don't. Go ahead.
going back to the stuff about the media, right? They're creating so many illusions, right? So it does a huge disservice to the main group of guys. It doesn't give them any potential to move forward, right? Because it's almost like you're saying, oh, if media is saying to those guys of like, oh, a guy should be this, that, whatever, and the guy's like, well, how do I get there? And then you're grouping them all
Yeah.
together, and then you
Yeah.
know what I mean. So it doesn't give them.
Yeah.
You have to have anything that's good that's going to serve people is going to have a path for anybody, right? It's going to have the guys at the top, they're going to be able to continuously improve, and the guys at the bottom, there's going to be a path as well too, right? So it's kind of like when we generalize men and women, because there's good and bad men and there's good and bad women, right? It doesn't really, it's sort of like putting one side down doesn't really bring up the other, right? So I think the clarity really should be is like, okay, well, number one, I think men need a better sense of reality too, right? So the more you throw in, you said OnlyFans and all this stuff, the more you throw in this temptation, distracting, all this junk that just weakens them, that's not really serving men. And it's like, well, who benefits off of that? The people who are making money off of that, of course. So it's good to have, I always say men need other strong men. So if you're not yet a strong man, go look at the guy that inspires you and say, hey, what does he have? What can I learn? Reach out to that guy, right?
Right. But there's also specific techniques. There's specific things he needs to learn. Like, for instance, men should be in the gym on a regular basis. This idea, so again, it is blue pill ideology, if you want to call it that, right? The progressive ideology. You're good enough. You don't need to go to the gym. It's a man going to a therapist telling him, you don't need to worry about performing at work. You don't have to go to the gym. Become very comfortable with the way you look. Not recognizing. So this is another thing that I talk about that's very controversial.
It's all irresponsibility, yeah.
Yeah, but here's another thing I talk about that's very controversial. This concept that I got a lot of progressives come up with, which is this idea of gender norms and gender roles. So the idea is basically that it's men who are enforcing gender roles on women and men enforcing gender roles on themselves. But the reality is, the reason why I go to the gym, the reason why I compete with other men, the reason why I make more money, the reason why I try to garner more status, the reason why I garner higher sexual selection is because that's what women choose. Meaning gender roles are not perpetrated by men. Gender roles are almost entirely perpetrated by women. Women are the ones who, again, when they're surveyed, you don't have to disagree with me. Tell me that I'm a bigot. Tell me whatever name you want to call me. Go look at any evolutionary psychology survey when you find out that women are far more interested in how much a man makes than the other way around. And then in egalitarian nations where women actually make more, and I'm talking about Scandinavian countries, where women actually make on average more than men, they still look for men who make even more money than themselves. So this is not a cultural phenomenon. This is a function of genetics. When you see this, and then you understand, for instance, I'll give you an example. Think about these concepts or these attributes: aggressiveness, assertiveness, ambition, and dominance. Aggressiveness, assertiveness, ambition, and dominance. These are all traits that women on average tend to find more attractive in men. If you were to say there's a patriarchy, what are the attributes that would perpetuate a patriarchy? Aggressiveness, assertiveness, ambition, and dominance. Which are the men that women are rewarding with sex? Men who show aggressive, assertive, ambitious, and dominant traits. So if women wanted patriarchy to go away, here's how you do it. I ask every woman this: is there a guy in your life that you just put in the friend zone? Is there a guy who's like, he was just a little too nice, that you didn't want to have sex with him? You just saw him as just a friend. You thought he was a great guy, but you just didn't feel anything for him. Ladies, if you would just start having sex with that man instead of the guy who really turned you on, the patriarchy would disappear. because what's happening is as women continue to reward the men who are aggressive, assertive, ambitious, and dominant with more sex, they have more children that are more aggressive, assertive, ambitious, and dominant. And of course, then there's a patriarchy. So again, these roles that we see where men have to compete with other men for access to resources and access to social sexual market value, that entire marketplace is perpetuated by women's selectivity. And it's so funny because it's women who are complaining about it. But again, one more time, when women are complaining, who are they complaining about? Are they complaining about this guy right here, the mailman? Are they complaining about the overweight guy at the end of the bar, you know what I'm saying, who's in his 50s, who hasn't been with a woman in 16 years? Are they complaining about these men? They don't even notice these men. They're complaining about this guy, the guy with the Bugatti who's dating 16 girls at the same time and leading them all on. This is the one that they're complaining about. And they don't understand that there's two groups of men here. They don't differentiate between the two. And so because they do that, they continually reward what they consider to be bad behavior with more sexual access. And then they keep perpetuating the entire patriarchy that they complain about.
Yeah, I mean, women, it's funny, even spiritually, women sit higher spiritually than men because it's like they're the ones bringing everything into the world, right? Going back to what you said about the aggressiveness and everything. If you're mating with those men, that's who you're bringing into the world and that's what you're perpetuating, right?
Again,
So, and it's,
women complaining about players. Hold on, Michael. If women complain about players, you and I, if I were to complain about something, the stoplights here in Vegas, I think some of them are mistimed. I complain about the stoplights because the stoplights affect me. I complain about the front office of the Dallas Cowboys because it bothers me how bad they are. I complain about the front office of the Dallas Cowboys because it affects me. If women are complaining about players, are they complaining about players because they're not sleeping with them? Or are they complaining about players because they are sleeping with them? What do you think the answer is? Women don't complain about things that don't affect them. So if they're consistently complaining about men who are players, it's because they're giving these men sexual access. Now, when you ask them, they'll be like, well, no, that's other girls. I'm different. I don't do that. I'll be like, well, did you ever sleep with a player? And they're like, well, yeah, back when I was younger, I used to sleep with them. And that's essentially what goes on. The nice guy who has the attributes that they say they want, this incredibly vulnerable man, Kamala Harris's husband, basically, that archetype of man, that super vulnerable man, that type of man, while he may exist and is much easier for society to tame and control, women don't find that man attractive and never will because of evolution, because of our evolutionary proclivities. They never will find that man attractive. So what they'll do is women will say, I appreciate the male feminist and the feminist ally, the male feminist ally, but at the same time, they're going to go have sex with the Marlboro man. They're going to go have sex with the guy who goes his own way, who has his own level of boundaries, who has a masculine, attractive presence. They're going to continue to choose those men.
yeah, the feminism, all the feminism does is hurts women. It doesn't, I mean, it kind
It's
of,
one of the craziest things ever. It's like feminism caused women to have more free sex with men, but that gave men more leverage. And then
and
women
it
complained
backfired.
about it. It just
Yeah.
exactly, it backfired. It's one of the craziest things I've ever seen. Like I really rarely have a problem like feminism is just wrong, but I don't need to argue against it. It argues against itself. Like literally, like there's no reason to even have a discussion about it because it argues against itself. Anything, by the way, not just feminism, behaviorism too in psychology. Anything that argues against or does not take into account human biology or human proclivities or natural selection or evolutionary psychology, anything that doesn't take those things into account, I don't need to argue it against. It's very similar to arguing against someone who doesn't believe in gravity and then they jump off of a balcony. It's just a function of like natural selection. It's Darwinism. I don't need to argue against someone who doesn't believe in gravity. Although I've argued against flat earthers before, but I don't need to argue against something that is empirically true. Evolutionary psychology is the truest form of psychology, meaning it's the one that has been the most battle tested of any other form of psychology. And so because of that, when people try to argue against it, feminism is the most anti-evolutionary psychology ideology that could possibly exist because it takes human nature out of the equation and just it replaces it with this sort of like socialist egalitarianism that it just lives in a fantasy world. And so
Well,
it's one of these things
it's
where
anti,
like you don't really have to argue against it.
I'm not entering this at
Go
all.
ahead.
I'm just saying it's like I said, it's everything defaults back to principles, right? So it's like people can fight and argue as much as they want about these trends, I would say, but eventually once clarity comes in, it always defaults back to the principles, the biology, and it is what it is. Right. So it's either it's like we can accept it or we can just waste our time fighting against it. But yeah, going back to like you were saying, it's like I tell all my guys to work out as well too. And it's like, why is that? Is it because men and women have different structures and we have different purposes physically and energetically, right? and biologically too. So it's like if a man isn't with our form, we have certain responsibilities tied to that. So if we want power as a man, we have to fulfill those responsibilities, right? It can get into mating, get into taking care of things externally, whatever it is, right? And there's so much because nobody understands what a man or woman is anymore. There's all the confusion, right? So, like you were saying, the media is going to pump out, oh, guys need to be more vulnerable and this and that, whatever. And, I tell my guys, there's a thing between emotions and feelings, right? Feeling is a sense, it's a knowing, right? Emotion is, uh, oh, this light's taking too long or whatever. I'm gonna be all pissed off. Oh, the football team lost the game. That's emotion, right? That's all garbage. That's all perspective based. Feeling is more tapping into your inner knowing. That's going to guide you. That's going to give you more clarity. Um, these things they can become so gray, and then guys are like, what way do I go? How do I, and if you can't identify it, you can't use that thing as a tool and actually use it. So these guys are just stuck paralyzed, right? And everyone's kind of sitting around just in this, chaos and
Yeah, well,
confusion, right?
I think part of the problem is the way we express our feelings. If I feel happy right now, but I don't show it on my face because I'm focused on what I'm doing, to someone who doesn't understand the concept of stoicism, they would think internally, they would look at me externally and say he's withholding his feelings. Like, no, here's how I manifest my feelings. If I'm happy, do you know what I do? I try to make my clients more successful. I try to make my business more successful. I manifest my feelings with success and action, because you manifest your feelings by crying, you manifest your feelings by yelling loud, by using expletives, or you manifest your feelings by being super expressive. That's your
Well, you see what
choice.
I'm.
Now,
Do you see what I'm saying? The difference between the
yeah,
emotion and feeling, because I think that's where the
for sure.
confusion is. Like the emotion is like, I'm angry. I express the anger, and it's gone. Right? It's just like energy flows through. I use it's gone. The feeling is like a state of being. It's like joy. It's love. It's all those things. Right? Those are feelings that you can maintain. Sort of when you're saying like, hey, I have joy, and I share that with my clients, and I help my clients exceed as well. Right? You're
Well,
not
well,
sharing. You're not sharing like anger with your clients and be like, hey, I'm angry now. I'm going to ruin your day too.
we'll express it like this. Let's say a few women come together in a book club, and one of the women in the book club, she expresses that she's having trouble in her marriage, and she starts crying, and the other women, they start crying too, and then they come up and hug her. That is a normal, healthy response for them to respond to
Yeah.
one another in that way, and they're having a feeling of love and kinship with one another, but they're expressing it with crying and physical hugging. I used to fly a KC 135 as a tanker navigator, an instructor navigator in the US Air Force. And there was a crew. It was me, the co pilot, the pilot, and the boom operator. I was a navigator. And so my love for my crew was equal to their love for one another, these females in the book club. But I didn't need to get up and cry and hug them, even though the emotion was there and it was still expressed, right? It's like, good job, Co. Whereas somebody would say, I love you, Becky, and hug them and cry. And there's all this emotion, not emotion,
Yeah,
emotion's the
emotion
wrong word.
pouring out.
There's
Just
all
like
this
outpour of expression.
ostentatious outward expressiveness. So therefore, because I'm expressing outwardly this love that I have for this person. Again, there's nothing wrong if you want to do this. Me inwardly, as a U.S. Air Force officer, I'd be like, good job, pilot. Good job, Co. If I were to say that, I'm having the same feeling and they're responding with the same feeling that I am, but I'm not crying. I don't need to hug them all
Yeah.
the time. The feeling is the same. My choice to express it in a more stoic manner is not wrong, and it's not less healthy. It's just the way me as a man, I choose to express myself. So what you're saying is I'm wrong in the way I express myself because I don't express myself like a woman would. And that's just not true. If you read in 2019, the American Psychological Association said that traditional masculinity was harmful. Don't take my word for this. Pause this video right now and go look it up. American Psychological Association says that traditional masculinity was deemed harmful, specifically stoicism. So if I feel a feeling like my son, he scores a touchdown, and instead of me crying and picking him up and spinning him around like it's a fucking Disney movie, if I'm like, hey, good job, Billy, but I still have the same feeling, I just don't express it outwardly, that's not unhealthy, and there's nothing wrong with that. Because later on in life, if I become a firefighter, a police officer, or a pilot, someone who has to deal with a high pressure situation, and all
Yeah,
of a
you're not
sudden
making
we
you
lose the
crying in the
engines,
middle of it.
I'm not gonna, I don't, yeah, exactly. Like, for instance, someone's gone into my house and kidnapped my family. When the SWAT team shows up, I don't need the SWAT team to show up and be like, Mr. Sartain, I just had a rough day today. And I just want to let you know that like Mercury's in retrograde and I'm just having like all these feelings. I want stoic looking men with murderous looks on their face to go in and save my fucking family.
Yeah.
To be fair, I'm the one who's going to go and save my family in reality. But like, that's what I want. I don't need the police to come and do a hostage negotiation while they're crying. I need stoicism. I need men who are focused. And even though they have emotions, they don't need to outwardly express those emotions. Because they choose to not consistently outwardly express those emotions, it doesn't mean they're holding their emotions inside, or what they are doing is unhealthy from a psychological situation. What's happened is that non-stoic people don't know how to read stoic people. And because they don't know how to read stoic people, their answer is toxic, or traditional masculinity is harmful. No, you just don't understand traditionally masculine men. And because you don't understand it, you misinterpret what they're doing and you don't know how to communicate like them. So what they want instead is for these traditionally masculine men to be more woman-like in the way that they express themselves. And when they do so, then that is healthy. That's a healthy way to express myself. Whether it's what I do is, when I love someone, do you know what I do for them? I solve problems for them. When I love
Yeah, do more
someone,
things.
Michael, I solve problems for them. I don't cry. I don't get on my knees and like, talk about, cry about moments of unconditional love and give them unlimited prose and read poetry to them. If I love someone, I solve problems for them. My way
Yeah.
of expressing my love for someone is different from the way that someone who may be a little bit more feminine than me would express love. But it doesn't mean they're wrong, but it certainly doesn't mean that I'm wrong, or that my stoic way of expressing love is harmful. It's not harmful. It's actually a lost art that men need to take up again. That we
Yeah.
learned,
We were talking
at
about
least
that.
we used to learn. We used to learn in the U.S. military, but we don't do that anymore. I express my love for people, that I express the way I love people with actions. Whereas some people might sit there and, again, talk about long paragraphs of undying love for one another and highly expressive emotional conversations. For me, I go and I solve problems for people that I love. My way of expressing love is no more or less relevant than yours. But the problem is, because you don't understand stoicism, you think that I'm repressing my feelings or acting in an unhealthy way. You just don't understand my language. That's all that's
Yeah,
it.
I like to say men try to get women to think like men and women try to get men to think like women. It just doesn't, it will never work, right? So everyone's spinning
I
on
mean, I have
wheels.
another way to do it. Women try to get men to express themselves emotionally, and men try to get women to see logic and reason. And most men who are smart just give up on that. They
Well,
don't
the thing
try to,
is,
again,
if you try to get a man to express emotionally, it's going to paralyze him, right? Because you're going to bring up guys like
correct.
the it's like you said, like guys express our love through actions. We like to do one thing at a time, right? When you get a guy to express his emotions, it's all these other things. He's like, I wasn't thinking about that. I was thinking about one thing about 5 seconds ago, but now, oh fuck, So it's completely overwhelming. And what happens is, if a guy can't focus on that one thing, he'll just shut down, right? So it works, all this stuff is trying to get men to be more emotional just works completely against them, and it weakens them, right? These women that, a woman, I mean, the best thing you can do for a woman can do for a guy is like, hey, go do something, go reach out to another guy. And actually, it brings up a good point, because going into the programs and everything, I always have these conversations. I'm like, it's rare to find good archetypes for men and women, right? So it's like more men need to seek out more good archetypes of men, because those archetypes used to exist, right? As in, fathers and policemen and even movie stars, right? Same thing with women. And it's very hard to find any of that, especially in media. That almost just doesn't exist at all anymore.
Yeah, well, I mean, the archetype that you're looking for in general is the man who would be willing to die for his family. I mean, the man who would be willing to take action in order to help other people. Rather, again, there's two ways to love the United States, right? You think about the people back home who are waving the American flag, and then I want you to think about those young boys who were storming Normandy back in 1944. The men who stormed Normandy knew that they were probably going to die and run it right in the middle of German machine gun turrets right there in Normandy in France. Those men express their love with action. The people back home express their love by waving the flag. These are two different ways of expressing love. And what I try to explain to people is, you choosing to express the love that you have for your family by providing for them is no more legitimate than the other people expressing their love by crying. It's the same thing. It's just a lot of people have trouble with it because they don't understand these two different ways of communicating. So again, one of my favorite things, you ever watch the show Suits?
Yeah.
The main character, Harvey Specter. Harvey Specter was not a great lawyer because he was a great litigator. He was a great lawyer because he made problems go away. That's what I teach men. In general, if you want to know how I teach men to become higher status, you need to be the person who makes other people's problems go away. So for me, most of my guy friends, and this is pretty ubiquitous, most of my guy friends meet their girlfriends through me. because I throw these massive social engagements, I'm always introducing people to one another. And so they end up meeting the women that they date. My lead sales guy met his girlfriend through one of my events. And then my business partner, who's also my CMO, he met his fiance through one of my events. These guys will meet their partners through events that I throw, because and what am I doing? Essentially, I'm having a problem, their male loneliness, and I'm solving that problem for them. If I continue to make people's problems go away, my status then increases. That sounds very cutthroat. It sounds very animalistic. It sounds very black and white, doesn't it? But the reality is we're all
Not at all.
hairless murder apes. But one of my favorite things is, and I don't know if Dr. Buss does this as a joke, but if you read his textbook, which is called Evolutionary Psychology, The New Science of Mind, the new 6th edition just came out last year, or the 7th edition. If you read the book, on the cover is the picture of a gorilla. And the reason why he has a picture of a gorilla is because, in essence, we are all hairless murder apes. We want to see, human beings
I
want to
like
see
that.
themselves as like separate from the animal kingdom. Yes, for sure. We've learned concepts of quantum physics, and we understand concepts of telecommunication. We certainly have written and spoken language that other species don't have. But the reality is we are just as subject to biology as any other species is. And so that's what behaviorists and progressive thinkers want to pull you away from, is the concept that you are just an animal. And you are. I'm not saying that you don't have any level of spiritual enlightenment, but the reality is, the reason why we're able to build buildings and the reason why we're able to form nation states is because we can all tell each other stories that we believe. What I try to tell people is, what story, think about a successful person, someone who has everything you want, someone who's succeeding in every way that you want to succeed, someone who has every single thing you want as far as a family, certain levels of happiness, or material wealth, whatever it is. What stories are they not telling themselves that you're telling yourself? The thing that differentiates us from, like, say, dogs, dolphins, and monkeys is that those creatures don't tell themselves stories. They just live in their own objective reality, and we tell each other stories. And so what stories are you telling yourself? I'm not good enough. I'm not able to complete this task, or this other person is better than me. There's somebody out there with a delusional level of confidence that went out and started SpaceX and started Tesla, a delusional level of confidence that was able to start Amazon or start Microsoft or start Meta or whatever. Someone had a delusional level of confidence because of stories that they were telling themselves that you weren't telling yourself. Once you come to the realization that you can tell yourself stories that you are good enough to make it, that you have an idea that's going to make yourself and other people millions of dollars, billions of dollars, that you have the ability to solve other people's problems, you do so, then you can become outrageously successful by doing those kind of things, by having an internal locus of control, and by understanding your own psychology. You're able to do those things. But in order to do those things, you have to first admit, we're hairless murder apes. We're subject to biology and stimulus just like everyone else, just like every other species.
Yeah, it's understandable. Yeah, see, so the thing is, like, yeah, it's a good foundation, and then I mean, humans have, luckily we're not dolphins, but we have a different potential to progress. And I see sort of in the media is people get almost too stuck there. So they're like, well, because if you look at the masses, right, most of the masses just negative. And I see a lot of people try to build almost mental barrier, not barriers in their own mind, but they try to protect themselves because they say, they look at like psychology, sort of what we were saying before, of women say, "Oh, all men are like this," and some guys like, "Oh, there's no good women," right? So then they start building things towards those women. They end up just still attracting those women, right? So it's like, if you want anything exceptional in life, there has to be a higher level of value, a different level of effort to achieve those things, right? If you want a quality woman, it's like, okay, where's your, like we're saying, where's your quality and value? Otherwise, you're going to be stuck at that mundane level, you know. And then it's like, once you achieve because it's not that, I always tell everybody, it's like everything that's already been done is done, right? If you want to learn how to make money, get women, whatever, there's somebody that has a system. Follow the system, you get that result, right? But it's also, my favorite question for everybody is, well, then what? And that's a hard question for a lot of people to answer, because they have this stuff and they're like, well, I don't know. It's like,
Yeah.
how many, is the answer more money? I mean, yeah, we should always work to progress and improve what we currently have, right? But there's a point where we do sort of max out our physical life, and there has to be something beyond that.
Right. Well, the thing is, I mean, you can go to an extreme. I think, like, the extreme maybe you're illustrating would be like ultimate materialism that does not lead to happiness. And while that is true, there's also the other extreme, which is this idea that you just believe you're good enough because you're mommy and because Disney told you are good enough, and therefore you sit there on your mother's couch in the basement continuing to masturbate and play video games. Like, the
Oh, no,
problem
that's
is
not that.
you.
I wouldn't say that. No, it's all those things. I'm not saying there's anything bad about success. I think, you should have
Yeah,
the material things, right? But
sure.
there's a point where you sort of max that out. And I'm not even saying balance. I'm not saying be the broke hippie, woo woo spiritual guy kind of
Sure.
sitting
Well,
at
there's a
whatever,
balance.
right?
Of course. Yeah. You and I are saying the same thing. It's a balance. You're looking for a
Okay.
balance in
Yeah.
between the two. Yeah, for sure. So there's a great book,
Well,
Jonathan Haidt.
it's a lot of my guys, a lot of my guys, once they work with me, they easily get those things. They easily get the material things. Or I sort of have two groups of guys. You probably see the same thing. It's the younger guys, maybe 25, 35. It's like, what do they need? They need structure and consistency. The older guys, I say my other group is like 50 all the way up to 80 years old. They need more fulfillment. They need higher aspects of life because they've had the external success, right? But they haven't figured out really who they are and they haven't built that value internally. Whether that's being maybe they had an easy life, maybe they're not engaged in life that much. And it's like that's why it is good to have things. The guy can be 70 years old and have money and things, but he's still lacking those relationships. He's still lacking the network.
Sure.
He's still lacking, value like that builds him into an even better man.
Michael, I'll take it one step further. I'll tell you that the mechanisms he used to garner that wealth and to garner that success actually work against him when it comes to his relationships. And so what I mean by that is I want you to think about a guy who comes, maybe in his 20s, he learns how to become a coder. He ends up developing some incredible app. He starts a business. Maybe he makes $100 million by the time the guy's 35. In this case, what's happened is this man has used reason, accountability, and logic in order to build a business that has made him outrageously financially successful. Then he takes those same attributes of reason, logic, and accountability, and he applies it to his relationships with women, and women just punish him for it. They destroy him for it. Guys, I've said this before, and I'll say it again, and you can put this on my gravestone, and you can cancel me for saying this. If you in a relationship do every single thing a woman says, she will punish you for it. That is the truth. That is always the truth. At some point, you as a man have to lead, and she's not going to tell you that you're supposed to lead. There's probably women watching this right now who's like, yeah, he's right. But like, again, if you want a
You
great
got
way
you
to
got to be able to
lose
tell
weight,
them no.
yeah, if you want a great way to lose weight, any of you guys are having weight problem, here's a great way to lose weight. Ask a girl where you guys should go eat, and then sit there for 4.5 hours while she can't figure out where to go eat, and then you will slowly starve to death. Again, if you sit there and wait for women to lead you and do every single thing they say, they will punish you for it. Again, if I work, again, Michael, you work for me. Let's just say you're a guy who does sales for me. You're a closer. Let's say you hit every KPI, you get every possible bonus. What happens as your employer? I'm going to reward you with more money and responsibility. You do what I ask exactly, and I will reward you for it. This is how the business world works. The business world works with reason, logic, and accountability. If I take the same reason, logic, and accountability, and I'm like, well, instead of my employer, I have my wife. I'm going to do everything she says, just like I do everything my employer says. Then my wife should reward me with more love and care and affection. But instead, when I do more things she says, she views me as a beta male, and then she eventually files for divorce. If I use reason, logic, and accountability in my relationship with women, I will always be punished for it. This is very hard, very hard. There's a lot of people watching this like, no, what you're saying isn't true. But ultimately, any guy who has success with women, you know that what I'm saying is true. And so you have to take that logical, reasonable accountability, logical framework that you have, and you have to remove it when you're dealing with women. And you have to understand your bond with women has to deal with emotion, has to deal with feelings. There's an emotional roller coaster. There's a level of tension that happens between men and women that maintains attraction. Attraction is not a logical function, but you have to be attractive to your partner in order for you to maintain this relationship. And it's very hard for men who become very good with money to understand how to deal with women. And so they end up falling into this crutch inevitably. And this is when they come to me. They start using money as a crutch to attract women because they don't know how to generate attraction on their own. No one taught them. In fact, you teaching men how to generate attraction with women is deemed to be toxic. So you can't even teach this kind of stuff. And so when you do so, and then you have men who fully and totally if you, again, this goes back to what I'm saying before. I'm talking to these men right here who have no luck with women, not these men right here who are crushing it. I'm only talking to these men. If you listen to the advice I give to these men, but you think that I'm giving it to these men, it sounds incredibly toxic. And so that's where the misinterpretation. The guy who's been with 500 women, if I say, hey man, you're the prize, You need to maintain your boundaries and tell those women what's up. If I'm telling that to the guy who's been with 500 women, that sounds horribly toxic. I'm telling the narcissist that he's the prize. But if I'm telling it to this guy right here who's been dumped by his wife, he's been with one woman his entire life and has no idea how to talk to women, I'm saying, hey, bro, you're good at you know what? You're the prize, man. Maintain your boundaries, stay true to yourself. And I'm here to let you know that you're a fucking awesome dude. If I say that to that guy, the
Yeah, it
man
builds
that
them up.
women don't even notice, the men that are invisible to women. If I say it to that guy, then all of a sudden what I'm saying doesn't sound so toxic anymore. It's just, I'm just helping a brother out is what I'm doing. But it's hard because most women don't see two groups of men. They only see these men, the men that they consider to be high status cheaters, the men who has his Bugatti and he's sitting there dating 16 women at the same time. The men that women complain about. They don't see the other 80% of men. And those are the men that I'm trying to help.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah, it's kind of the relationships. It's guys understanding sort of the domain that they're playing in, right? So it's like masculine. Business is a really masculine domain, right? So the logic works very well. The hard work works very well there. And the way that plays into a relationship is a little trickier too. Also, I mean, there's some crossover in business and relationships too, right? It's like the sales process. You can take both. Women are also very good at sales for different reasons, right? So it's like understanding both of those sides, right? And it's sort of like left brain, right brain, understanding the difference between logic and feeling, right? And I think ultimately, if we were going to have success in just say overall relationships too, we need to understand both sides and where we have more success in as men, but certain domains, right? It's because if a guy, honestly, well, as well, if a guy is completely just way too logical, that doesn't serve too, right? Because they'll never understand women. But, it really comes down to the guys having, like you were saying, like if the guy has success in business and makes a bunch of money, but he hasn't had that experience and that earned value too. I think that's a key thing that the guys are missing is because, yeah, they could have success for 50, 60 years. But if there's certain sort of a rite of passage that men go through, then when we just get our ass completely kicked, and that's where we actually learn too, and that's
Yeah, I mean,
sort of backtracking, going through those experiences and going in there and actually talking to the women and going through the hard stuff, right?
yeah, I mean, it's a different language that you're speaking when you talk. By the way, this is not a complaint about women. Women are fantastic. The world is better because of them. My experiences with women are
Yeah.
almost entirely positive. But what I'm trying to express to men is that when you don't understand when you're speaking to women, and I'm talking in generalities, I've met highly logical, super accountable women before. But in general, when dealing with a relationship, there's an emotional component to it that does not fit into what you would expect in a business relationship. I have
Yeah.
you may have a positive relationship with your employer or an employee because they give you clear direction on what to do, and then they compensate you fairly for it. That may be enough for you to have a healthy relationship with your employer or your employee, right? But in a relationship, now there needs to be levels of communication and vulnerability, and women need a certain level of validation, be it emotional, and men need a certain level of validation, be it respect or be it sexual. They need a certain level of validation in the relationship, and that's different from a
Yeah.
business relationship. And so a lot of people who are very successful in business don't understand that. You don't want to say one other thing. If you're a successful man out there and you're watching this and you've become very financially successful, right? You've figured out not only do you have money, but you understand the mechanisms to make money. Let's say you have that. If you have that and you don't understand women, you are a target. If you don't understand what I'm saying, go read Brittany Renner's book where she identifies how women target men financially and then they take advantage of those men. Herself, Brittany Renner, she got a professional athlete to get her pregnant. And now she's like, I got that bag. I'm set for life because I got PJ Washington to get me pregnant and have a baby with me. That's what women are doing now. They're actually, for men who are highly successful and don't understand women, you are a target now. You're being identified by women as a target because you don't know how to talk to women, because you don't know how to attract women using any other mechanism other than money. The only one mechanism you know how to use, you become a financial target. And now your ruin and your demise is soon coming. Not understanding the concepts of evolutionary psychology or the concepts of intersexual dynamics is very, 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 very dangerous for men. And you actually, if you're a man who has money and doesn't understand women, you don't have like neutral game. You have negative game. You actually have anti-game. Your game is actually worse than if replacement level. It's terrible. So I highly recommend for guys who are out there who are becoming like, hey, Michael, I don't want to learn about how to date women. I don't want to learn that yet. I just want to worry about like becoming financially successful. You can do that in the short run, but I'm telling you, in the long run, you are going to face some serious, serious challenges because you're not. I have several clients right now, incredibly financially successful, and they'll tell me about a girl that they're seeing, and very quickly I can point out that this woman's a sex worker, and they can't tell the difference. They don't know. They just don't know that what's going
Yeah,
on.
yeah.
And I'm like, you're in Dubai. You met a woman from Ukraine. You know what I'm saying? She says she doesn't have an Instagram, and then you found her Instagram in 2 seconds. You looked up her profile picture. You found it on a bunch of sugar daddy websites, but in their mind, they still don't understand they're dealing with a sex worker. They don't understand because they don't have enough experience with women to be able to grasp these concepts. And when men are highly, highly, highly financially successful and don't understand women, these very transactional women, who include sex workers, are the ones that are going to come out of the woodwork. They're very physically attractive sometimes, and they're going to come out of the woodwork and they're going to attack these men because these men are a target, like I said before.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, I like that too. It's like ideally we want to talk about there's good men and good women. That's where I see people get stuck on social media of women or this, women or that. But yeah, I like what you said. I like what you said about them being a target, right? If you don't understand this stuff, you don't have the experience of the good and the bad, then you're going to be kind of an easy target, right? So as far as where people, where guys get stuck the most, and actually, let me backtrack a little bit. I like what you said about the guys not taking. Some of my best advice for younger guys is like build yourself first, right? It's build yourself, and till you get to a certain point where you can select whatever you want. I think you'd agree with that as well. And because I see a lot of guys get too distracted with dating, right? It's like date as much as you want, but don't commit to the woman until you find the right
Mm.
woman, right? I think
Okay.
guys overcommit early, and then that causes a lot
Sure.
of you know
Yeah. So the way to not waste all your time chasing women is to build a social circle. That's the answer. The answer is to create a circle that funnels beautiful women into your life. And then I remember my buddy Myron, he says, you need to have sex with 50 women before you even consider getting into a serious relationship. I don't know if that's true, but I think 50 women need to want to have sex with you. You need to understand concepts of male to female attraction before, like, you need to understand concepts in attraction before you start to settle down. You decide to settle down with one woman, like you said before. You need to have enough options and need to have enough experience understanding how women are before you decide to settle down. Otherwise, you end up like the situation with Steven Crowder, where he married the first woman he slept with, and now she wants a divorce and he doesn't have a prenup. You don't want to get caught in this situation where you don't have enough knowledge to understand what's going on. So you need some experience with women. Women on
yeah,
again, another thing I'm going to say that's super controversial. Women do not need experience dating men to get better at dating. Men do need experience with women to get better at dating. That's just,
yeah, I like that.
it's a
I think
function
that's
of
life in
reality.
I think it's life in general, right? It's like, energetically women sit up here, guys sit up here when we come into the world, right? So it's like women have to maintain their status, guys have to build their status, right? So to your point, right? It's like women don't need to, let's say if a woman dates a ton of guys, she lowers her value. If a guy dates a bunch of women, he raises his experience and value.
Yeah, even that, and that's subjective. I agree with you, but that's still a subjective point. The reality is, women generally can, like, they can have male friends or male relatives who can let them know. This is a really, really important thing I tell men and women to do. You need, whenever people are looking at your relationship or looking at someone you're attracted to, you need a third party who isn't attracted to that person. This is why, like, it's a lot of times grandma gives good advice, because grandma's generally gone through menopause. You're super
She
attracted,
knows.
you're a female who's super attracted to the bad boy. Grandma's seen the bad boy. Grandma's dated the bad boy before. Grandma's fully aware of what you're going through, but grandma's not attracted to the bad boy the same way you are. And grandma might be able to give you some really, really good advice if you listen to her, right? This is a type of situation I recommend everyone have a third party. Look at your relationships and the people you're attracted to objectively and be able to see blind spots that maybe you can't see. And here's another piece of advice I give that's, again, very controversial. I think every man needs a huge female slut friend who sleeps around a ton, but she doesn't. But this woman, you don't sleep with her yourself, but she sleeps around a ton, and she tells you all of the secrets. She shows you the text messages she's sending to 7 or 8 different guys at the same time. She shows you the techniques that she uses to attract men repeatedly and how she fools men repeatedly. Every guy needs a huge female slut friend, every single one. And every female needs a huge guy player fuck boyfriend who explains to her, this is what I do to keep these 7 women in love with me at the same time. You need someone to, like, pierce the matrix, to expose, go behind the curtain and show you the intersexual dynamics. I'm not telling you to sleep with that person. What I'm telling you
No,
is,
it's building awareness.
You need someone who is completely disillusioned to explain to you the extreme levels that men and women can use, that men and women can use to manipulate the opposite sex. You need to see that. I think you need to be exposed to that in some level. So I do highly recommend that women have some huge hoe friends, and that women have some huge hoe friends, and that men have some huge hoe friends. Not to date them, but to at least be
Just
exposed to that, so
to be
that you
clear.
can kind of understand. So again, I have some female friends who live here who are sugar babies, and I'll have a conversation with them. They'll come on my show, Access Vegas, and they'll be like, "Yeah, I went on a date with a guy for $7,000. He got me this bag, and I didn't even sleep with him." And you're like, "Oh, this girl's lying. Clearly, she slept with him." And she's like, "No, these other guys I slept with. This one guy, he pays me $7,000, and I didn't." She's not lying. She's actually saying that there's men out there. What kind of pain are you going through in your life where you're paying a woman $7,000 to pretend to like you? What's going on there? It's like, what is the suffering that you're going through? Let's expose the suffering. And I always joke with these women. I'm like, "Hey, here's a promo code. If you use the promo code, I'll give you a commission if you get this guy into my program." And she's like, "I don't want to get these guys in your program, Michael. Then they'll stop spending money on me." And she's right. They will.
Yeah. Yeah. Somebody really needs to straighten those guys out because they're ruining it for everybody too. It's sort of like those guys are they're kind of like the male version of feminists because
Sure.
they're
Well,
just,
yeah. Well,
oh,
they're
they're,
ruining the market. You're correct. If a guy is willing to go on a date with a girl for $7,000 and not sleep with her, when I ask her on a date, she's literally losing out on $7,000 to go on a date with me. Right? They're
yeah.
screwing the market. They're literally skewing the market. You're absolutely right. Yeah, they're
Yeah.
skewing the market.
It just distorts everything, you know?
Yeah. Again, if I make $100,000 a year, but a woman can get so many simps on OnlyFans to continue to give her money, where she's getting 400,000 a month, then her dating me, her like using her feminine wiles on me, or having anyone realize, there's another big thing. Women like now women talking about their boyfriends publicly becomes a financial decision. It's not a social decision anymore. It's a financial decision. If a woman has a huge profile on social media or on OnlyFans, and then she exposes one day that she has a fiance or a boyfriend, she literally loses money for letting other people know she's in a relationship. Do you see how crazy that is? It's a
Yeah.
financial decision now for her to expose the fact that she has a boyfriend. That's a big deal now. Right, that's huge. So now we're in the situation where women like now what happens in sports, we call it wins against replacement. What women are like, I could be going to this party and meeting a bunch of rich dudes, or going on a date with you. I can't even afford to go. It's not like I like you plenty, Michael, but I can't even afford to go on a date with you, because if I go out here with these guys, then I get paid a bunch of money. And so now, like, the wins against replacement for dating a normal guy, you end up losing money. And that's what's happened to this dating market. It's become incredibly skewed with Instagram, OnlyFans, Patreon, and women on these sugar dating websites. Again, I know most women are not on OnlyFans. Most women are not on sugar
Yeah.
dating websites, but it has downstream ramifications. Just like if you've
Yeah.
ever been in a city where people are healthy, you'll notice you go to the gyms and people are fit and look healthy. It makes
Everybody
more
here.
people to want to become healthy. There's downstream ramifications. If the women at the top are accepting these dates with celebrities and stuff, it has downstream ramifications for every woman, for her to believe that she has the ability to procure resources from these super high status men, not realizing she's sharing that man with 17 other women.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, it makes it harder. It makes it a little bit harder for the good people, but really at the end of the day, they're ultimately just hurting themselves, right? It's like they're going to come up short. They're not going to have fulfillment in life because it's all just short term pleasure, right? It's very easy to
Well,
just dive into that, right? It's like sort of the same thing with the guys, where the guys will spend money to get the women because that's the quick and easy. Women will put themselves on OnlyFans and do all these things because that's the quick and easy. And the quick and easy just, I mean, I think it's straight across the board. The quick and easy never works.
Well, here's the other thing. We as men, though, we can't obsess over whether or not it works for women or not. One of the big negatives I've seen in this space recently, we'll just call it the manosphere space, is these men obsessing over the fact that, oh, these women who did porn, they're just going to be unhappy. I don't know. Maybe they'll be happy. Maybe they won't be happy. That's none of your business whether or not they're happy. You shouldn't spend one single moment worrying about this situation with Lily Phillips. She's the pornographic actress who on OnlyFans, she had sex with 100 men in 100 men in 24 hours. Okay, she did this in London. And then there was all this talk back and forth between trad cons and feminists about what she did. And then my response was, someone's going to marry this woman. And I know it sounds insane, but someone is
Oh,
going to
sure.
marry. It won't be me. It won't be you, but some very, very some guy with extremely low self-esteem is probably going to marry this guy. He might even be wealthy. And the thing is, all these guys in the comments were like, no, she's going to pay for what she's done. And I'm like, nah, she might end up happy. Who knows? But it's none of your
Yeah,
business. It's called schadenfreude. When you enjoy the demise, the fall of other people, I don't need other people to not succeed in order for me to be happy. The reality is, are some of these girls going to experience like total, like, negative feelings and be horribly sad and blah blah blah? Maybe they will, or
yeah,
maybe they won't.
possibly.
It's Schrodinger's cat. They might, or they might want. What you need to focus is on your bench press max. You need to focus on your bank account. You need to focus on your personal happiness, your internal locus of control, your self-esteem, your personal improvement. And don't worry about whether or not your ex pays for the fact that she cheated on you. Guys, I got bad news for you. Your ex cheated on you and she's just fine. Karma didn't come down and strike her down. She's sucking some dude off in Biscayne Bay right now, making 90 grand a month on OF. She's just fine without you. Stop worrying about it. All these, your mommy comes to you and is like, she cheated on you because she's not good enough for you. No, bro, she's doing just fucking fine without you. This obsession that men have with the demise of women who reject them, get over that. It's incredibly unhealthy and it's incredibly unattractive, and it does not help you succeed. I'm only interested in things that help you as a man succeed. And when you focus on those things, the surprising thing is your ex all of a sudden wants you back.
Yeah, we never want our exes back. Don't do that. That's a horrible mistake.
No, agreed. You don't want them back, but that's when they want you back, when you completely moved on. Again, the
Yeah.
best revenge is a life well led.
Yeah, yeah, makes sense. Yeah, yeah, it's interesting because everybody, even the spiritual path, especially as somebody highlights, everybody has a path forward, right? It's everyone's on the same path, just in kind of different places, right? So it's like even if somebody did the worst, or you have opinions which are never good anyway. It's like that woman you're kind of filling me in pop culture. I stay out of that stuff, but she's on her own path and she has her own path forward. If she decides, whatever it is, right? She's got to face her own reality and make her own choices. So I like
She
how
does,
you
but it's also
explain
none of
that.
our business. She does, but
Yeah,
it's also none of our business. It really is none
yeah.
of our business. It's like these men feel like there's some sort of arbiters of justice to let these porn stars and OnlyFans girls know that they're going to pay for it in the future by being barren and alone. And I got bad news for you. Like there's a woman right now. She has the world record. She slept with 919 men in 24 hours, and she's married with 2 kids now.
There you go. Yeah, it's interesting. I see a lot of guys worrying about that.
What?
They want to that's yeah.
I mean, I don't care how insane it is. My problem is you focusing on her unhappiness is not making your life
It doesn't
better. So
matter.
fucking stop worrying about it.
Yeah, I see a lot of. It's funny you said. I see a lot of these social justice guys, or I'll talk to guys locally, and they're like, "Oh, I got to teach this girl. Let's teach this girl that." I'm like, "You're not going to teach. You're not going to
You're
teach
not going to
anybody
teach girls
anything."
anything. You're not going to teach anybody, especially like, no offense, you want a great way to lose a bunch of money, female self-improvement. Try that. You want a great way to not make a penny, go ahead and do that. If you want a great way to make money, teach women astrology. You will make so much money. Teach women the 5 love languages or whatever non-scientific term you want. You will make a ton of money. You want to make money with men, you teach them self-improvement. You want to make money with women, you teach them woo-woo, like Joe Dispenza, I healed my spine using a quantum field, any of that stuff. That's what you need to teach them, and they'll believe it, and they'll buy it, and they'll buy whatever it is that you want to sell them. But for men, it doesn't work that way. You actually, men, this thing called behavioral activation therapy, you take action. When you take action, then all of a sudden you notice your psychology will improve. There's a great book on this by Jonathan Haidt called The Happiness Hypothesis. Taking action and succeeding gives you the dopamine rush. It gives you the serotonin that your ancestors were rewarded with by accomplishing goals. The apex of human existence is to have a family and to accomplish goals with other people. That's the apex. While we're here in this mortal coil on this earth, the apex of our existence is to accomplish goals with other people and to have a family. That's it. You can argue with me. You can say whatever you want. The science is going to.
I was actually going to ask you that. I was actually going to ask you that question, right? Because it's like, what's the pinnacle of male success? And that's really what it comes down to, right? It's
Yes.
just like life in general. It's like the currency of life is relationships too, right? So the people who can't, say as a guy, the guy can't get over his emotion, the guy can't communicate properly, the guy can't
Yes.
have relationships, is going to live a very, limited life, right? And it's like, but once a guy has all those aspects of him figured out, and he has relationships, he has the family, it's like that is. Are you saying something?
Yeah, what I was going to say is the pinnacle of male success is to have the people around you that you care for and that you love have the freedom and the safety to flourish, and that includes making money, like making enough money to be able to protect your family members from calamity, and having enough physical fitness and physical prowess to be able to physically protect your family from harm and allow them to have the freedom with which to operate, the freedom with which to flourish and to experience happiness. That is the true level of success for a man. I am a man, I have a family, and I've created a home where my children can learn and become educated, and my children can be happy and be allowed to flourish and explore in a safe environment. Me being able to do that, being able to have a company where I can make my employees wealthy, to give them enough financial freedom to where that they can live a life where feel freedom and they have the ability to flourish. That is the true level of success for a man. You solving problems for other people. And then the ultimate expression of that is the willingness to die for people that you care about. That to me is the ultimate expression of manliness or malehood. That is and by the way, there are women willing to die for their family too. I'm not trying to keep them out of it, but you want to know the ultimate, when you're asking me specifically about men, the ultimate level of success for men is being able to protect your loved ones and being able to give them a cubby hole of safety, a bubble of safety for them to be able to flourish and be happy.
Yeah, it's creating through your actions and efforts, giving them
Yes.
building the environment for them to be able to grow and progress. Because ultimately, we came here to learn how to grow and progress, and when
Yeah.
we do that, that's when we feel the joy and fulfillment, right? And it's like,
Society is just a microcosm of what you just said. Society is a microcosm. People, we're sitting here complaining about gender politics or whether or not there was enough water in the fire hydrant in California when these fires started. We're debating these things, but the only reason we can debate these things, the only reason we have an infrastructure to have these debates is because violent, angry men were willing to do massive levels of harm and violence to other violent men to create this little safety net, this little cubby hole of safety for us to have this discussion. Violent men in the 17th, 18th, and 19th century were willing to conduct levels of violence to ensure your freedom to have these discussions. You need to remember that. But those men, because they did that, now we sit there and we get as fat as shit and eat trans fats and have this incredibly horrible diet that's full of sugar, salt, fat, and estrogens. And we can sit there and we have the privilege. Do you imagine these incredibly good looking male models telling men dating advice to just be themselves? Do you know how privileged you have to be in order to give someone that incredibly stupid advice? That part is insane to me. So that's the thing. We forget the level of privilege we all have because society makes our life easier. It is 72 degrees right here in my studio. I'm looking across the street at the Aria is right there across the street from me because I live on the Las Vegas Strip. And so if I'm hungry, I push boop, boop, I push some buttons and then food just appears in my apartment. I'm going to go down to my gym. My gym is 10 seconds away from my front door. My life is so incredibly cozy and easy because other people were willing to make a sacrifice in order to create this easy lifestyle that I have. And often as men and as society in general, we forget that.
yeah, I love that. Yeah, exactly. What To that point, right? It's like men have risked their lives and they've given their lives to build all these things, right? And that's part of being a guy, right? Let me go back even more too. I actually like what you said about, kind of the ultimate fulfillment with a guy, because most guys don't even know, if you don't know where you're going, you can't map out a plan to get there too. Because if they're like, oh, I'm just doing it for this, I'm just doing it for that, that's very short lived and we'll give up on ourselves very quickly, right? And anybody who wants a high level of success has to have that bigger purpose or aspiration to drive them forward, to be willing to take all those risks. And when guys are out there, risking their lives doing all these things, what would you say is a good way for women to encourage that and support that for the guys?
One more time. What is it that you want to encourage?
So the men, right? The men that are really out there, taking action, moving forward,
Yeah.
solving problems,
Yeah.
supporting their families, creating that environment for themselves, for their families, for others. What is a good way for? Because I see a lot of women start. Maybe it's the one of your two remotes. Maybe it's kind of the women are bashing those 1%,
Yeah.
whatever guys are,
Yeah.
right? But because I see that a lot, right? The guy's out there doing everything he can, and the women are, oh, it's not good enough, I'm going to bash him. And it's like, why? Everything, guys, I like to do, when I talk to guys in business and marketing and stuff, I said, really, the best way to market is to understand that everything in this world is done for women. If it wasn't for women, guys would just be base whatever,
Sure.
right? So
Yeah.
when a guy is out there risking his life and suffering and taking all this action and building all these things for you, what is the best way or kind of message to women of how to encourage more to get the most out of the guy and support him?
Yeah, I actually think I have a different answer than what you're going to expect. What women want to do to support me or support men in general is none of my business. What I'm going to do is have enough abundance in my life to where women are competing for my attention. And then a lot of times what will happen is when women recognize that you have the masculine traits that turn them on, that they're attracted to, they're all of a sudden, they become that woman you just described. You'll have a woman throughout her whole, again, very, what was the situation with, I can't remember the actress's name. She said she doesn't want to have any kids, and then she Ryan Gosling's girlfriend, Ryan Gosling's baby's mama. What's her name? She was in Fast
Blake
and Furious.
something? Blake something.
No, she's no, she Ryan. No, you're thinking of Ryan Reynolds. Ryan Gosling's. I can't remember who she is. She's the actress's name. She said before, "I don't want to have kids," and then she goes, when then she got pregnant by Ryan Gosling, she goes, "But I want to have his baby." It's like I don't want to have babies, but I want to have his babies. Often, when women are confronted with a truly masculine man that they're attracted to, all of a sudden those attributes that they never had before, the Cardi Biification of them, all of a sudden it goes away because a truly masculine man they're attracted to, now all of a sudden they want to have children. They want to be a good mother. They want to have those things because a truly masculine man was presented to them. I think it's far more interesting. The best thing in the world for men is for men to not be creepy. And the best thing in the world for women is for men to not be creepy. The best thing in the world for men is for men to be more attractive. And the best thing in the world for women is for men to be more attractive. That's it.
Yeah.
So if you want to know ultimately what it is I teach, I am a male attraction coach. When I say I'm a performance coach, that's what I say outwardly, but inwardly, oh, I'm a male attraction. I teach you the mechanisms to be more attractive, mostly to women, but often to also your social circle for other people to want to network with.
Right, which ultimately serves the purpose of man is to have the family, have the kids, and just continue
Yeah.
on,
And
producing,
to find
right?
a cohort of men that you want to accomplish goals with. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's another thing. I think that's really, really important that you said that is because men need other strong men to have, they have to be in community with those men. I see a lot of these like this is terrible, but these groups or whatever. I think those are awful because most of them I've been invited to one and I observed and I'm like, oh my god, it was a bunch of guys just complaining, and then there were rules when I showed up there. They said, I can't remember all the rules, but the number one thing that stuck with me, I'm like, what the hell's going on? Is don't give any of these guys advice. Just listen to them. And I'm like, is this a women's circle? And then they're
Isn't it
doing all
crazy?
these. Oh my god.
There's two types of men group that are problematic. One type of men group is all they do is complain about women, and the other types of men group all they do is express their emotions. So one of them is way, way, way too expressive, and the other one all they do is complain. There's only one way that men truly will feel happiness, and I'm sorry if you have a problem with what I'm saying, but it is true. The way you feel happiness is by accomplishing goals, by finding
Yeah.
goals and accomplishing them. If you do so, again, when you think about this from an evolutionary standpoint, which type of man would evolution have rewarded with more sexual access, more resources, and better neurochemicals, better feelings in their brain, the reward center of their brain, giving them more positive emotions? Which one of these men? The man who sat there and was navel gazing and just considering all the reasons why his life was a failure and choosing to be a victim, or the man who went out, tried to hunt the gazelle, fell down, failed, got up the next day with a hungry belly and tried to hunt the gazelle again and did it again and again and again until he was successful. And then he brought the meat, the protein back to his starving tribe, to which they were cheering him and supporting him, which, be honest with you, the answer is so self-evident. It's just impossible to ignore. Which man is going to be rewarded evolutionarily? The man who went and consistently did not give up and accomplished goals with other men, or the man who sat there and complained, blamed women, and felt sorry for himself? It is so obvious when you look at natural selection which man evolution would have rewarded. You need to recognize those mechanisms and become that man. And when you do so, again, look up behavioral activation therapy if you don't understand what I'm describing. Behavioral activation therapy shows that as men accomplish goals, this works far more better for men. When a men accomplish goals, their self-esteem increases. Women, a lot of times, their self-esteem will increase for other reasons. I'm not saying women don't accomplish goals. They certainly do as well. But I'm saying for men, it's a unique thing. Women can be passengers and they can be captains on the ship. They can be the captain of the ship and they can be a passenger. Men can only be captains.
Yeah, women they can slightly play more roles a little bit easier. Guys can't really dip into the feminine, or like I said, it paralyzes them. But it's different.
And not just it paralyzes them, society shuns them. It doesn't, I don't care what
Yeah,
you say.
yeah. But it's a different.
The stay at home dad paradigm is a precursor to divorce.
But
Say it
it's
again.
not. It's like I was saying. It's not the guy's not fulfilling his purpose because of his function, right? It's like the form dictates the function. So it's like if I have a hammer that can do certain things, if I have a wrench, I can do another thing. You know what I mean? So it really comes down to if we're talking about, there's spiritual aspects, there's biological aspects, and that determines the function, right? So it's like I always say all the time with responsibility of your role. If you get promoted into a role at a job, and you're not doing your job. What happens? You get fired. You know. So you get all this pressure. Imagine if you get promoted to maybe a VP level and the C-suite's like, what the hell are you doing? Right. It's the same thing with these guys that have all this anxiety and depression, all this stuff built up because they're not doing what they're supposed to do. And it's just eventually they'll crack, or eventually, hopefully they get pushed into doing what they're supposed to do. But it would
I
keep,
just
what's up?
Yeah, I just thought you just made me think of something. I'm dating like this stunning Latvian girl right now, and I remember like if I was late to a meeting when I was in the military, like I would be punished for it. I'd be chastised. I could be suspended. Like a bunch of bad things could happen to it. I was late with my first date for this girl, and she was like very upset about it. She goes, "If you're ever late to another date, I'll never talk to you again." And then became my girlfriend right after. It's so funny. It's like but me being late in her mind, regardless, I'm sure she'd never admit this, even though we're still seeing each other. In her mind, me being late probably made her think, wow, this guy has a lot going on. But she's like, I'm a 10 and this guy is like late to a date with me. Like, what's going on in his life for him to do? And the reality is, I didn't leave the gym. I just left the gym late and then took her out. And it's really funny, like I said before, when you do everything that women ask you to do, they will punish you for it. So the same attributes of reason, accountability, and logic that would have helped me in business, being on time to the meeting, would have actually punished me. I'm 15 minutes early to our date. She sees me waiting there patiently. So glad that you made it. And you're like, how long has this fucking weirdo been waiting here at this restaurant for me? Instead, I'm the one who shows up late, and she ends up being more attracted for it. I hope she
Yeah.
doesn't watch it. She's gonna be pissed when she sees this.
Yeah.
But it's true. I mean, she's the one sending me nudes. So like it's true. What I'm saying is true.
She's going to randomly seek out the hermetic guy talking about spiritual
Yeah,
principles, the
for sure.
podcast, and say, "Oh,
Hilarious.
you're gonna get she's gonna be pissed tomorrow." But yeah, cool. Yeah, we covered so many things. I appreciate it. It's cool once we, with the media and stuff, when people say these things, not us, but when people say things on social media, they never expand on it, right? Because you take one thing, you're like, I don't know. If you don't know, you don't know. And so it's nice to have these conversations where you can really pull those things apart and show the polarity and show the stories and the extremes, because once you show the extremes, you're like, it becomes a lot more clear,
Yeah,
you know?
immersion therapy. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
you give the extreme, like for one of the things I do is men with approach anxiety, I take them to the loudest, most like stimulus filled nightclub and I make them go talk to women that are way out of their league. Like, and I just do it like so that they get over their anxiety. I like to use nightclubs a lot of times as like a battleground, not because they're a great place to meet women. They're not a great place to meet women. I do it because it's hard. I do it because everything's against you. I like to go places where everything's against you. I like to play the game on hard mode so that when I come back to real life, you need to practice harder than you play. Like, have you ever seen sometimes you'll see where guys will try to beat the press, like so the basketball practice, let's say in high school, the guys will try to beat the press. The team on defense will have 6 players and the team on offense will have 5. So it's like it's disproportionately harder than it would be in real life. So practice now becomes harder than the actual game, so that when you get to the game, it's easier. You see this
I like that.
often with like MMA fighters or boxers. What they'll do is they'll fight 12 rounds, but while they're fighting the 12 rounds, every round a new opponent comes into the ring who's
Yeah,
fresh,
it's called
right?
Shark Tank.
He's Yeah, exactly. Shark Tank. They keep every time they're fighting a new opponent every few minutes while their stamina is depleting. They get a new fresh opponent so that when they get in the ring in their actual fight, it's actually easier than training was. That's what I try to do with these men is I try to get them used through by immersion. There's something they do in the U.S. military. They put guys behind a berm, like a dirt hill. They put them down, and then they fire live bullets over their head so they can hear what actual live fire sounds like. So they get
Yeah.
used to it so they can control their heart rate. I'm very much a fan of immersion therapy. I think the greatest way to get over your fear of snakes, spiders, or a fear of heights is to jump out of an airplane and go sit around a bunch of snakes. Like that's how you get over it. A lot of people hate this idea, but I love the concept
Yeah.
of immersion therapy. If you are afraid of talking to women, I take you to around the most beautiful women possible in the loudest, craziest environment full of smoke and strobe lights and security guards who look like they hate you, and I make you go talk to 50 women a night until you completely get over your fear. That's the way
Awesome.
I try to train people. Yep.
Yeah, I think that works amazing for guys too. It's like you have to increase the tension, right? It's like you said, it's like train harder so you can live life on easy mode too, right? And that's
Yes. We
why,
don't do these things because they're easy. We do them because they're hard.
yeah, that's awesome. I love that. Cool. All right, well, I think we covered a lot of stuff, and overall, what would you say the main message is? Really for guys, it's get out there, take more action, and build your value, right? And it's like in the world of social media and all this
Yeah,
illusion, it's like it's really setting guys back from, because I see this is another thing too to wrap this up, but a lot of guys will study all this stuff, but they'll never actually jump in and take action, right?
sure.
Because social
Yeah.
social media, OnlyFans, going back to OnlyFans, all this stuff, it gives them kind of that quick feeling of what they want, but it starves them from the actual experience and actually gaining that value and experience. Yeah.
Yeah, the ultimate message
Message.
is no one's coming to save you. No one. You can be the origin of your own self-esteem, but you can't be the origin of your own value. You actually have to take action to increase your value, especially to the opposite sex, or increase your value monetarily, like say in the work market, in the employment market. So you actually have to take these actions. I'm going to give you brutal truths. The fact that you aren't enough. I don't care what your mommy told you. When your girlfriend if you're in a situation where the last 6 women you dated all cheated on you, you are probably the problem. I'm here to give you brutal truths that other people won't give you. Truths that if I give to some people, they get very, very angry. If you're looking for some level of structure in your life, if you're looking like teach my course like a military training instructor, I remember my MTI back when I was at Maxwell Air Force Base, he was mean as shit to me, but he did so because he cared about my performance as a military officer. And that's how I am with these men. If you're looking for something like that, a cohort, a brotherhood, if you're looking for accountability, feedback, and networking, this is the brotherhood that you want to join. MOA Mentoring. That's what we do. We give you guys a ton of networking, a ton of feedback, a ton of accountability, and we give you methodology and techniques that are based in science. Granted, some of the stuff I do talk about is anecdotal, and I express that when it is. Some of the stuff I talk about is my opinion, and I express that. But often, some of the experiences that I express are that come from the 300 men who have already gone through our program. And if you don't believe me, you can go to moamentoring.com/testimonials, and you can watch hundreds of video testimonials from people who've gone through my course previously, and they'll explain to you exactly what I'm explaining to you right now. You are the origin of your performance. No one is going to come to save you. You're not just good enough because whatever they told you in the church, Disney, or your mom who told you that you're a special snowflake. That is not how the world works. You are a man. And as a man, you are born with a burden of performance. You need to embrace that burden of performance instead of shying away from it. You need to understand that your vulnerability is something people must earn. I'm not going to be more vulnerable or more expressive around someone who has not earned my trust. When a woman gives you a beautiful child, she's gone through 9 months of pregnancy, and she gives you a child, and you hold your child in your arms for the first time, you have every right to cry. But the reason why you're crying and showing that level of vulnerability is because she earned it. She was a great woman who did an incredible sacrifice for you. And of course, you're going to cry. That's your child. That's an incredible moment. She deserved you crying. Some girl that you met on Tinder, you're on the first date and you're telling her about how all your exes treated you like shit, you're just a chump. She didn't earn shit. You're just telling her all your problems because some moron told you that you should. And now you're telling all this woman who didn't earn shit all your problems because she has big boobies and you have no personal boundaries. If you want to learn those personal boundaries, come see me. That's what I'm here to teach you.
Love it. Figure out true reality and earn it. That's a good message. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Awesome, man.